Hello, YouTube. We are back again. This time we are at the season finale of Talamasca. It's the big finale, so we all know we're gonna get some big reveals, we're gonna have bombshells, we're gonna have a whole lot of unanswered questions, and hell, we're gonna throw in a surprise vampire or two. Let's dive in. We're gonna take a trip down memory lane to start off the episode. So, for the last few episodes, I haven't really been bringing it up because it's just been like one little scene here and there, but we have been getting some more information about Helen and her twin sister. We know that when the twins were separated, Helen was taken to the United States, and her sister, she was taken off to Amsterdam to work on a different project. It mainly had to do with her didactic memory. And that means, like, basically she has perfect recall. She can read a book once and then be able to recall the whole thing. It'll all be recorded in her brain. Very important for things. The beginning of this episode actually takes place in the past. It's 1985 at the Amsterdam Mother House. We know in the 70s, the archives burnt to the ground. And this day in particular, we have these like two walking mullets, and they're escorting a vampire gentleman into the basement. And he meets with a man working for the Talamasca, and his name is Houseman, and this will be important later on. See, the Talamasca has found out some dirt, some juicy gossip about Gentleman Vampire over here. Apparently, what had happened is Gentleman Vampire caught his vampire wife in bed with another dude, and he's like, hell no, killed both of them. And oh boy, is Gentleman Vampire in quite the pickle, because if the Coven finds out that he's been killing vampires in the Coven, yikes, is gonna be credits for Gentleman Vampire, so to speak. So Houseman has an opportunity here. He's like, listen up, Gentleman Vampire, I could go tell people what I know, or you could do me a favor. So they take Gentleman Vampire into this room, and there's nothing in it except for one table, and on this table is an unconscious woman, face covered, neck out, very anonymous. They're just serving up a little vampire buffet here, and Houseman's like, hey, I need you to do me a favor here. You're gonna make her into a vampire, and then I won't tell everybody your juicy secrets. But Gentleman Vamp is like, bro, no, like, we don't do this? Like, this is kind of fucked up, don't you think? And I'm a vampire who murdered people, and even I think this is fucked up. Because essentially, this is like vampire date rape, you know? This is not a good situation. In the Anne Rice universe, generally speaking, vampires are a lot like humans, where most of them are not that bad. They're just trying to live their life, they're doing their best. In fact, most vampires, their main diet consists of actual bad guys. They hunt down like human traffickers and drug dealers and bad guys, and they eat them. They don't go around like killing soccer moms, you know? However, vampires like people, some vampires don't give a shit, are just gonna go out and do evil stuff. So, same thing here. Where Gentleman Vampire's like, hey, I'm not like that kind of vampire. But the Talamasca isn't really concerned about, you know, a moral quandary of good and evil here. Gentleman Vampire is a vampire, and that's about it. He's not particularly gifted. He's just a vampire, and they need someone quick, and he's the guy for it. And since he doesn't really have a choice in this situation, he turns this girl into a vampire. So let's fast forward to present day. This is what's happening right now after the end of the last episode. Back at the safe house, Doris, she grabs her book and she is sneaking out. Guy, however, has had a spy glow up, and he actually figures out that she left, and he tracks her down to this little like convenience store. And Doris is still on the whole like, listen, it's really dangerous if I stay with you. You will have a better chance of surviving if I go away, so that's what I'm going to do. But this whole little argument is interrupted when they see on TV Houseboat Witch Massacre 2025, and they're like, oh no! So they run off to the crime scene. It's crawling with cops, including, guess who? Detective Boldcut. And of course, since Detective Boldcut is actually good at her job, guess who she sees? Oh, Doris and Guy, the people that she's met before and has like all of these photographs of. She knows they're involved in this. So she's like, you two, get in the car, you're going to the station for questioning. But the thing is, as far as, evidence goes, Detective Bullcut only really has photographs of them that are circumstantial at best. It just proves that they were in the same area as a crime being committed, but they don't have any evidence that they were the one to do the crime. And this is when she throws out like her ace in the hole here. She's like, oh, I guess I don't have anything more than circumstantial evidence, except, oh, I have this third sample of DNA that was at the crime scene, and guess what? It belongs to Helen. So she slides over Helen's photo. Uh-oh, shit's getting real at this point. However, this is something, as a viewer, you're gonna have to do some deductive reasoning on here, because, like, why on earth would the police have Helen's DNA on file? Like, she's a Talamasca agent. She would not be easily findable. I'm assuming Olive, double agent Olive has planted evidence in their system, maybe. I don't know. They don't explain that, but it doesn't really make sense unless you put together some pieces that they don't do in the episode. But nonetheless, they still have Helen's DNA. Things are heating up here. So speaking of Helen, what's she been up to? Helen, she managed to track down the old doctor from the facility, Jameson equals the other guy's name. I can't remember. She got that note early on and she finds him. And she goes in, she talks to him, and he ends up telling Helen, like, what happened to her sister, because that's all Helen wants to know. And a lot of this stuff we basically already know. We know about her being taken away, going to Amsterdam, being used for her memory, all of that kind of jazz. And it's here we find out the juicy gossip from inside the Talamasca, where the Talamasca had this big schism in it back in the day. And some members wanted to use their information for evil, quote unquote. And the Talamasca elders couldn't let them do that. So they took Helen's sister, who can memorize an entire library's worth of books. And after she was done, guess what? Plot twist. You know who burnt down the archives? The elders themselves. They had to burn it down so no one could use the information for evil. And they had a backup file in this young girl's brain. So it turns out the 752 is not a book. It is a person. And while that's a reveal, we're about to pile on a bombshell on top of that, because we find out that Helen's sister, her name was Emma, and she actually changed her name when she left London. Guess what she changed it to, everybody? Guess what she changed it to? Doris. Doris is the 752 and also Helen's sister. What? How can this be? Everyone should be asking, because Helen is 40 years older than her. But the fact remains, these are twin sisters somehow, and we finally found Helen's sister, and she's the 752 and 40 years younger. So the plot has thickened here, everybody. But we're going to get back to that later, because they explain how this is possible. Because back at the precinct, Olive has arrived at the precinct. She's back to pretending she's that MI5 agent with the terrible wig, and she's there to get Guy and Doris out of this sticky situation. And you know what? This really sucks for Detective Bullcut. She was finally onto something. She's actually really good at her fucking job. And then this fucking bitch in a terrible wig shows up and fucks up everything for her. She was so close to cracking this wide open. And then she gets punished for being too good at her job. She gets suspended. It kind of sucks. However, what Olive doesn't know is that IT did end up cracking that encryption code last episode. So right there on his home screen is the Talamasca drive with Olive's picture on it. So IT guy goes, I'm also good at my job. He runs it through facial recognition, and he finds a ton of aliases all about this one woman. So again, the plot is thickening. But while all that is happening, Olive, she is walking Guy and Doris out. They're going to the parking garage, the big save. Let's go to the Talamasca. You're gonna do stuff, la la la. So they get to their car, and then Guy looks at the driver in this car, and it's Jasper's henchman. So Guy is immediately like, oh no, we're being betrayed. And he calls out to Doris, but she's already in the car. And then Olive pulls a fucking knife on him. So now they're struggling in a knife fight. The car is trying to escape. Here's the thing about Doris. She can take care of herself, because she immediately just slits the driver's throat. Blood everywhere. It's a mess. The car crashes shortly after. So now that the car has crashed, Guy gets away from Olive. He runs to the car. He's got to save Doris, right? So he opens the door, and guess what? Doris does not need saving because here's a time for another big bombshell. Doris, she's a surprise vampire, everybody. Guess what? She is a vampire, she is fully vamping out, and she looks insane. So I feel like everyone has now put this together that Doris is that young girl from the cold open of the episode in 1985 who was turned into a vampire against her will. However, since Doris in the present is being all full insane vampire here, Olive is like, you know what? I'm gonna nope right out of here real quick. She's not dealing with a crazy vampire, so she leaves. And Doris is like, we gotta get out of here, put me in the trunk. So she gets in the trunk of the car because it's daylight. She can't be walking around. And Guy gets in the driver's seat of the murder mobile and they just speed out of their steps. So Guy, he finds his underground parking garage. It's the perfect time for them to get out of the car and regroup. And he finally sees the book in the car. And he's like, well, let's see what all this shit is about. He opens it up and he finds out it's actually a scrapbook. You know, like Kevis and Doris have said to him, it's a scrapbook. And it's just filled with like nonsense pictures. It's pictures of like Kevis doing cool things. Kevis with Doris. Kevis with Guy. It's just a scrapbook. And he's like, all of this for a scrapbook? He's rightfully kind of confused and pissed off about everything. So he needs to know what the fuck is going on here. All this hassle, all of this stuff. Everyone's trying to kill him. There's surprise vampires. Give me some answers, Doris, please. But mind you, there's a lot of backstory to go over here. I don't know if Doris has a time. She didn't even know where to begin with all this. So she's like, listen, I'm just going to let you into my brain. You can see for yourself. And most of all that he finds out right now is stuff we already know. So I'm just going to take this part as read. We're getting just up to the present here. The only really new thing we learn is that the Talamasca specifically turned her into a very weak vampire on purpose because they just wanted her to be immortal, and like vampire's the quickest option to do that. And they didn't want her to be a super powerful vampire because she would just kill them all and bail. So they made her into a weak vampire who's basically just immortal and drinks blood. That's it. No cool powers. And then for years, they basically just like imprisoned her, and so she could be like, you know, their Rolodex on file. She was their library. They can go to her for any information they need. However, she does manage to escape at some point. We don't find out how she did. We just glance over that. And when she was on the run, she happened to meet this little girl who had just lost her mom, and she kind of takes her in and is like a mother figure to her. And guess who it was, everybody? That was Kevis. Doris is Kevis's kind of stepmom, foster mom situation here. They killed her kid. That's why she's so pissed off. It's more than just best friend. This is like this girl she raised. And on the night when Kevis died, Doris was there, but she got there too late to save Kevis, but not too late to kill Mr. Find It. So she's the one who took out Mr. Find It that night, and hence how they have Helen's DNA at the crime scene. You know, correct DNA, wrong sister. And I'm just gonna stop it right here for a second because this is a huge fucking plot hole. This is that bit of lazy writing we were talking about, because how would the DNA still be the same? Doris is a fucking vampire? Her DNA would be so weird. It would have all kinds of vampire shit in it, and it wouldn't match Helen's DNA anymore. However, we need the plot to work, so we're just gonna go with it, even though it makes no sense. So, moving past that, the next step in this whole endeavor that we already know about is that they have to get to Waterloo Station that night to meet Helen for their new passport so they can escape. But let's put a pin in that for now because the plot has thickened again, and this time it's about Jasper. So let's go check in on him. So remember that guy from 1985, Houseman, who made Doris into a vampire? Well, he's Director Houseman now, and he is still hunting down Doris. And turns out he has been the mastermind around this whole 752 fiasco since the beginning. And since Guy and Doris had been picked up by the police, they have photos of them. They're putting down an APB on them. So now Houseman has a direct lead to Doris, this girl he's been trying to find. So great, his plan is coming to fruition here. So he's got to go start cleaning up loose ends. Loose end number one being Jasper. So cut to London. Olive, she's been Jasper's mole this whole time. She calls him and she's like, hey, listen, the girl who's with Guy is a surprise vampire. I'm not dealing with that. I'm gonna come to you. But guess what? They have the book, which, you know, they still think is the 752. They think it's a book. And they're going to Waterloo. Like, this is how we're gonna get them. So, great. Jasper knows where they're gonna be just in time to catch them. However, it's at this point that Greg Owens, the head of the London Mother House, finally grows a spine and is like, Jasper, you have gone too far by killing all of those witches. I am not going to help you do this anymore. You're off the rails, bro. And Jasper has been having a rough couple days, okay? He's not gonna put up with any of this kind of shit, and especially from fucking Greg Owens of all people. So Jasper just finally kills him. He's like, you're dead now, go away. And, you know, from the book perspective, we know that the head of the London Mother House is supposed to be David Talbot. So now that Greg Owens obviously dead, that's gonna leave, you know, the head of the London Mother House a vacant position. Just in time, likely it will be filled by David Talbot in like future seasons. It'd be really weird if David was not in Vampire Lestat at all. So I'm assuming we're gonna get casting news eventually. So goody goody, we're gonna have a David Talbot opening that can be filled by a David Talbot. But regardless of who's gonna take over the London Mother House, right now, the Houseman plot and Jasper's plot are intersecting because Houseman sent a strike team to the London office to shut all this shit down. And they throw a bomb in the door. It's like a gas bomb, but filled with like iron particles. Because in the books in particular, iron has like a weakening effect on vampires. Sometimes, the thing with Anne Rice's vampires and her immortal universe in general, the rules are kind of fast and loose here. Because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I think generally speaking, it does weaken vampires, but some much more than others. So if you had a really, really powerful vampire, maybe like a Burton or a Lestat or something, they probably wouldn't be as affected as Jasper would be because he's a relatively young vampire, you know, as far as vampires go. So anyway, they catch him, they lock him in an iron muzzle and iron cuffs, they roll him up in a rug and they take him away. And then they finish their whole cleanup mission here by going to the basement. Some henchman is down there with a flamethrower just like burning all the pet revenants. However, guess what? One of those cages was left open and one of the revenants was not in their cage, and it manages to get the henchman guy. So we know at least one revenant has survived this massacre. And it's right around now that Olive finally gets back to the London Mother House, not in time to do anything about Jasper because she sees a suspicious rug cleaning van leave and she's like, oh no, things have gone down. So she goes to the London Mother House. She's like, I gotta look around. She's in the basement. She sees dead henchmen on the ground. She's like, well, that's weird. But next to him, the revenant clicker, conveniently in the basement because the one revenant still left alive is good old Checkers, our friend Checkers. Look at him. He's actually being good at something for once. He wasn't very good at being a human. So, hey, Revenant seems to be suiting him just fine. And luckily, Olive found the little clicker here so she can control Checkers. And this is an opportunity for her. She's like, ooh, okay. So now I have backup. I have my own little attack dog I can use. And you know what? Who knows? Maybe she'll be a better pet owner than Jasper was. At the very least, she could bathe him so he at least looks/smells better, you know? Just for starters here. And that's fully just a suggestion from me. I would love it if she was like a kind pet owner. And also the idea of seeing like Checkers in a big bubble bath is just funny to me. So I really hope we get that if there's a next season. That would be so cute. But none of that actually helps Jasper, who's being taken to Amsterdam to meet up with, of course, Director Houseman. So they take Jasper down to that same basement from 1985, and Houseman's like, Jasper, you've been a very naughty boy for making all those revenants. You know better. He just gives him like a scolding like he's a schoolboy here. So he's like, listen, Jasper, I'm willing to forgive and forget, okay? You just gotta do me a little favor. Houseman takes off his iron muzzle and he brings him in the medical room, except this time it's filled with 16 unconscious people waiting to be made into proper vampires, not revenants. Hope you're hungry, Jasper, because you've got a lot of vampires to make, bro. And that's really where Jasper's story ends for this season. We don't know what happens next. So since that's a wrap on Jasper, let's go back to Guy and Doris. They get to Waterloo Station. It's the big night. They're gonna meet Helen. Everything's going down right now. And they're in serious danger because all over the train station, they have the APB out with their pictures on it. So they're wanted by the police. This is a problem. Luckily, they're able to hop onto a train real quick and they're like hiding and they're trying to spot Helen like through the windows. Helen arrives at Waterloo shortly afterward and she immediately makes two Talamasca goons who are hunting for her. They're coming to get her. And she's like, I can't let these Talamasca boys take me because, like, who knows what the fuck is going on in the Talamasca? There's something rotten in the state of Denmark here. So she goes up to an attendant and she's like, hi, my name is Helen. I am wanted for murder. You should take me to the police. So attendant guy goes to get the cops. Helen, she just keeps walking along. She needs to be in a public area so Talamasca goons don't take her. She bumps into a lady conveniently to slip the passports into her pocket because she's about to step onto the same train that she knows Guy and Doris are on. And then we get the big moment here where Guy spots Helen, Helen spots Guy, and then Doris and Helen, these two twin sisters, this is their first time ever seeing each other again in like 50 years. And it's actually kind of sweet. Like, they can't, have this big reunion right now. The only thing Helen can do is help save her sister, which is the one thing she wanted to do this whole time. She wanted to find her and help her. Guy, our little cinnamon roll hero here, he has wormed his way into Helen's little black heart. So even she cares about him too. So Helen does the only thing she can do right now is sacrifice herself. She tells him to go and she sends thoughts into Guy's brain saying, hey, this is where I left your passports. And it's right then the doors of the train close and the cops descend on Helen. It's a whole orchestrated thing. So the train leaves, Guy goes and retrieves the passports, and the police are walking Helen out of the station in cuffs. Guess who shows up at Waterloo Station, everybody? Detective Bullcut. She wanted to get there early so she would have a crack at Helen before the cops could, because luckily these beat police didn't know she had been suspended. And immediately Bullcut is like, so I have your DNA at a crime scene, but you're a woman in her mid-60s. I don't think it's likely you did the killings. And also, you've been hanging out with this girl who has like 85 identities all over town. Like, what the fuck? And then Helen finally gets to say what everyone has probably been thinking this whole season, like, damn, Detective Bullcut, you're really good at your job. I think you have potential. And we don't go any further with it here because technically I think Helen's on the run from the Talamasca too. She can't bring her in for a job interview right now, but they can work together. Oh my gosh, we're gonna have a Helen Bullcut like buddy cop storyline, which I'm obsessed with. And then our season 1 finale closes on Guy and Doris on a ferry sailing away from England. I'm assuming they're going across the channel to France. And Doris tells him, hey, Guy, I might know where your mother is. However, what they don't know is that Houseman still has a man on them watching them for now. We don't know what's going to happen next. And then boom, credits. Season 1 is complete. So hot damn, was that like kind of a good finale? I was really worried they weren't going to stick the landing, but they ended up sticking it because they left it with a lot of unanswered questions, but also a lot of speculation to do. Like, where is this going? I'm very intrigued. I think they set it up for a second season. One, we got Helen and Bullcut working together to like get to the bottom of this Talamasca conspiracy theory. We got Olive being a double agent with her new pet Checkers. We have Doris and Guy on the run from the Talamasca and looking for his mom. Like, if I'm gonna purely speculate here, I still think I have it right where that like the mother is part of the 752 program. I think likely Guy's mom is on that rival faction of the Talamasca that didn't want the 752 to be created. So I think that's gonna be the key here. Like, maybe she's like a good guy. I don't know. Jasper, he's about to be a new father to 16 baby vamps. Who knows what's going to happen there? And then we got introduced to a brand new character, Houseman, who has been the mastermind behind all of this all along. He's been out there playing 4D chess, and we've all just been trying to keep up with him. So as far as like a plot device of bringing in like a brand new character who was secretly like the person behind it all along, I'm not sure if it's necessarily the best conceit for a series, but it works in a spy drama because you want that big like twist, that big reveal. However, on a finale episode, it's a little bit cheap if I'm just gonna be honest, okay? Because you don't have any more episodes to explore that. Like, that should have been a penultimate episode, you know what I mean? And then there's one more episode to kind of wrap things up a little bit more, especially if you're introducing a new character. But you know what? I'm not the showrunner, okay? That's what they wanted to do. And hopefully we'll get a season 2. We'll see what happens to all these guys, because there's a lot up in the air. Overall, final thoughts on Talamasca season 1? It was actually pretty fun. And yes, there's the whole thing about like the plot holes and the lazy writing things just so plot can happen. But you know what? I'm here to watch a story about like vampire spies. Like, I'm not expecting something to be groundbreaking. I think a middle ground, like things are allowed to just be okay. Not everything has to be remarkable. And I thought this was a fun season. I had a good time with it. It had spy drama. It had likable characters. It had gore. Oh my goodness. It had action. So overall, I had a good time. I liked it. I would watch a second season of it. On that note, let me know in the comments down below. Do you think there's going to be a second season? And if so, what are you most excited to see in a second season of Talamasca? Let me know in the comments. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. If you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And if you want cool exclusive content, including early access to videos or a book club, you can consider becoming a channel member or a patron. Links for that are in the description down below. And on that note, I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.